Well, you're very welcome to today's talk. It's Monday, the 31st of May. Main thing I want to talk about today is the India variant in the UK, and there seems to be a new highly transmissible variant in Vietnam. So we'll have a look at that. Let's just start off though with a quick review of the English-speaking countries, as we often do. Now, this is this sharp decline here. That's the Canada line. So Canada's come down quite quickly. This is Ireland here. A more gradual decline. Then the United States still going down, and unmistakably the United Kingdom going up. There's been a few cases actually in Australia. We're going to do an update on that later on. And New Zealand essentially flat as far as I'm aware at the moment. But the UK going up there, and of course that's due to the spread of the India variant combined with the recent opening up where people can mix within each other's houses in the UK. So quick review from the States first though. Dr. Fauci, we don't want to declare victory prematurely as we still have a ways to go, which of course we agree with, despite the cases are going down. We'll see why he's concerned as well. But the more and more people that can get vaccinated as a community, the community will be safer and safer. Vaccination rates in the States are not really where we would like them to be at the moment. And the rates of new disease are still relatively high, and certainly there in unvaccinated population. And his concerns are there was more global cases in 2021 than 2020. So there's still lots of coronavirus out there that can possibly, of course, be imported into the States. And that's what he says. There's always a danger of variants emerging and diminishing somewhat, not entirely, somewhat, we believe, the effectiveness of our vaccines. So that is his concern there, I think, really. Unvaccinated people within the United States and the risk of a new variant being imported. And it's not impossible, as we'll see, that this Vietnamese variant could become the world's dominant variant, which could be really quite a significant problem, depending on... we'll look at the data from Vietnam in a minute. Now, quite a few people have been asking about the Indianapolis Speedway. 135,000 spectators, only 40% of capacity, evidence of vaccination required. So it's outdoors. So I'm not too worried about that. What I would be more worried about is the bars around about the Speedway, the public toilets around about the racetrack. I'd be more worried about. And even though it said evidence of vaccination is required to go, 90,000 people were given vaccines at the meeting, which is a bit strange. Good that 90,000 people are vaccinated, but if they already need to be vaccinated to go, why were they being vaccinated again? So, curious one there. Don't quite know the answer to that. Now, let's look at the UK first of all now and think about the India variant. Now, people testing positive, 3,240 in the 24 hours. The last 7 days, it was 22,474 testing positive. That's an increase of 26.8%. Now, it's an increase on relatively low numbers, I know, but it's still a rapid increase. And about 80% of these new positives are the B1617.2, the India variant. Now, this is the increase of the India variant in the UK. Now, this is from the Sanger Institute, working with NHS England, and it really is quite staggering. This is the increase from the 24th of April. It has gone up exponentially to now being 80% of the cases in the UK. I mean, look at that, just an incredible level of increase. Now, to be fair, we warned about this a couple of months ago on this channel. Advice wasn't taken, flights continued, and this is the result. That is the result, rather. Right, okay. So admitted to hospital in the last yesterday, 133 patients, 870 over the week, up 23%, and deaths up slightly as well. Now, we know that this is going to cause increased cases, in combined with the fact that we're now allowed more indoor mixing. But I'm hopeful it's not going to cause a great increase in deaths, because the relationship between deaths and cases has largely been broken by the vaccine. But we are told that this will cause an ongoing increase in cases, and there will be an increase in hospitalisations in those that have only had one vaccine, those that haven't been vaccinated in younger groups, and those that haven't accepted the vaccine, especially at risk in the older groups and those with comorbidities. So that is what we were warning about, and that is exactly what has happened. I'm not going to take time to get annoyed because it's now where we are at, but it was pretty obvious it was going to happen some time ago. And to confirm that, epidemiologist, Queen Mary University, London, this was entirely predictable, we agree. India variant, while at different frequencies in different regions, was rapidly increasing across all of England. So this is still clustered to a large extent, but it is now abroad, as it were, in England, all over the country, and indeed Scotland. Now we have a highly transmissible variant. These are direct quotes, of course, they're in italics, capable of a significant level of escape from vaccines, especially after a single dose. So people are going to become infected after they've had one dose of the vaccine, a few after they've had 2 doses of the vaccine, far fewer. People at particular risk are going to be those that have developed a poor immunological response, such as those with purely controlled diabetes, or those with cancers or on immunosuppressing drugs, would be particularly at risk if they haven't responded well to the vaccine, leading to an exponential rise in cases in many areas, I'm afraid. Currently, the fully vaccinated figure is 38.1% in the UK. This could be a start of a third wave, hopefully not as severe because of the vaccination status. Now, the opening up that was due to happen on the 21st of June. Where's our well-thumbed roadmap? Here it is. Step 4 is supposed to be on the 21st of June. Potentially see all legal limits on social contact removed. Nightclubs opening. Restrictions on weddings, funerals will also be abolished after the further liberalisations, or the previous liberalisations, on the 17th of May. So there's now no question really in my mind that is going to have to be put back. So there's not a question mark. It will be put back. I think it has to be put back. The final decision is on the 14th of June. But with the increase in the India variant, I can't see that that will not be put back, unfortunately. Here's the data from the UK. Now, just to show that these are at relatively low levels, they're the increasing cases there. So we see it's still at relatively low levels, but the variant is increasing. Likewise with healthcare, still at fairly low levels, but there is unfortunately an increase. That's the total number of people in hospital. So that looks about the same, but the number of people being admitted has slightly increased. Okay, nothing like where we were, but we really don't want a third wave. So it is definitely a concern. Now, other countries are concerned as well. France, for example, where are we? There we go. France, from today, non-EU nationals not allowed into France. And of course, that includes people from the UK, unless they have compelling reasons. If they have compelling reasons, PCR test in the past 48 hours. Travellers are obliged to self-isolate for 7 days because of concerns over the India variant. So France closing down actually as legally as much as it can, as quickly as it can really, because of the European regulations, but closing down to all non-EU residents, and even then these requirements for anyone else. Of course, people from other EU countries could go without these stipulations. So I think that means that the India variant will get to France because of the mixing within the European Union. Italy extended the travel ban from India, Bangladesh and Sri Lanka. Of course, they're worried about it as well. And just to show that we forget how well on we are with the vaccinations in the UK and the US, but Spain, for example, King Felipe, aged 55, had his first dose of his vaccine yesterday. Now, obviously pleased to see that King Felipe is taking his vaccine with his age group cohort in Madrid, but it just shows that they're not really quite, nothing like as far ahead as we are in the UK. So the potential for things to go a bit wrong in Europe with more cases, spread of the India variant, and because they have a lower proportion of people vaccinated, then potentially more cases, hospitalisations and unfortunately deaths in Europe with a new variant. Now, talking about new variants, the most concerning one at the moment seems to be Vietnam. Now, we don't have full data on this yet, but the Vietnamese data appears to have the worst characteristics of the UK B117 variant and the worst characteristics of the India B1.617.2 variant. Now, it's not a hybrid of the both. It's not that the viruses don't breed. They don't reproduce sexually in that way. But it seems to have the worst combinations of both. Now, the question in my mind is Vietnam has had very low cases for a lot of time. So where has this come from? That really is a bit of a mystery. Now, if you had millions and millions of people who are infected and millions of viral replications in each person of the millions and millions that's affected, then there's a greater opportunity for mutation to take place. But because the rates were so low in Vietnam, you really wouldn't have expected a mutation to have arisen there because of the relatively low viral numbers. And yet this seems to be where it has emerged. And it's not looking good from what we know from the Vietnamese data. Now, background here is early 2020, Vietnam closed the borders except returning citizens. Quarantined and tested everyone who entered the country with a great deal of efficiency, it has to be said. And I'll give you the evidence for that in a minute. Widespread contact tracing and testing. So Vietnam actually did an excellent job in early 2020, way better than the UK or the United States or Europe. They did a really good job in the early stages of this pandemic. They were proactive. As we were yelling for people to be at the time, we weren't, they were. And things went well. So overall in the pandemic, 7,000 cases, 47 deaths. But most of these half of these 7,000 cases have been very recently, and here we are. Now, February 2020 up to the present time. So we see, a few cases there, small amount there, very low levels there, a little bit there. But now, I'm afraid, with this new, I suppose what we must call the Vietnamese variant, sharp rise in cases. Now, to be fair, they're only up to about 400 a day. That's the 400 a day line. So it's still at a low level. But the Vietnamese authorities are concerned. The Vietnamese authorities are competent. Therefore, I am concerned. Mass testing in Ho Chi Minh. Plan to test all 9 million people. 100,000 a day. Doesn't need a mathematician to work out that's 90 days, 3 months to get through the whole population. That's going to be too late, basically. So they are focusing their testing around about a particular cluster that we believe has occurred there. The authorities are saying it's a very dangerous hybrid. When they say hybrid, it's not crossbred. It's got the worst characteristics, though, as we understand, of the India and the UK variant. And I'm afraid I've kept the worst news till last. The Vietnamese authorities are saying easily transmissible by air. So from what we can tell from the Vietnamese authorities, this looks like the most contagious variant that has so far come along, unfortunately. New social distancing, 15 days, starting today and then for 15 days. Mostly staying at home, shopping, restaurants closed, religious activities suspended, incoming international flights to the capital Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh, city that used to be called Saigon, suspended. Vaccinations, only 1% of the whole population of Vietnam. They vaccinated about 1 million people. The vaccines are the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine and the Sputnik V vaccine. The Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine that they're using is manufactured under license in South Korea, Biosciences, by SK Biosciences in South Korea. So the reason they're getting any vaccines at all, largely through the COVAX program, is because Oxford has licensed out production to many facilities around the world, and they've got relatively local production there. Pity other vaccine manufacturers are not doing that as much as Oxford AstraZeneca are. So the question is, will the Vietnamese contain this? Well, if it's just this cluster that we know about in Hanoi, the answer is probably yes, because they're very good at containing it. If it's already spread, like if it's been imported from somewhere else and has already spread to other areas, then because it's more transmissible than the India variant and the UK variant, that means that will rapidly become the most common variant in Vietnam. And it will greatly increase the amount of cases in Vietnam. And having got away with essentially no cases all the way through the pandemic, the next months, which is going to be hopefully the last months in their pandemic, could be really quite bad for Vietnam. So that is a bit of a concern. Also, if that variant escapes from Vietnam, it could become the global variant in the world. That's quite possible if it's as contagious as the Vietnamese authorities are indicating that it may well be. Right, that's all from me today. The last thing is the report from Australia. Now, I know a lot of you like Dr. Susan Oliver. I do very much. And now I haven't actually listened to this yet, so I'm going to listen to it with you, make a few notes, and let's see what's going on in Australia. She did email me to say that she did say there was 40 cases in the talk. That's now up to 51, but I'm not quite sure what cases it is. But let's listen to Dr. Susan Oliver. Thank you, as always, Susan, of course.
Hello, this is Vaccinated Susan. We have a COVID update from Australia. So in my last two updates, I talked about the growing complacencies towards COVID that we have been seeing in Australia. Unfortunately, I now have to report that we are seeing some of the consequences of that complacency. We have gone from 0 local cases last week to so far 40 local cases this week. And one case announced today is an aged care worker, which is very concerning. Now, most of the cases have been linked to each other by genomic sequencing, and it is one of the variants that originated in India, although not the same lineage as is spreading across the UK. It is one of the others. But the whole of Victoria is now in day 3 of a 7-day lockdown. So, how did it happen? Well, the index case was a returned traveller who unknowingly caught COVID whilst in hotel quarantine. Now, this has happened a few times now, and I think it is worth mentioning because these transmissions occurred between people who never had any face-to-face contact but were just staying on the same floor of a quarantine hotel. If you think about how many people in the world live in shared buildings, flats, units, apartments, condominiums, etc., that's a lot of people who could still catch COVID even though they are taking precautions whenever they leave home. Now, obviously, the risk of catching COVID from someone living in the flat next door is a lot less than catching COVID from going to the pub, but the risk is still there. Now, back to the index case. He did the right thing and came forward for testing when he developed symptoms. And he worked with contact tracers to identify where he had been in the time he was likely infectious. So, all good so far. Unfortunately, when the contact tracers went to the venues to get the names of everyone who had been there at the same time, the lists were incomplete. And this is just complacency all round. Complacency of people not bothering to check into the venues, which incidentally takes about 30 seconds. Complacency of the venues in not checking that their customers had checked in, and complacency of authorities in not doing anything to ensure compliance. But it gets worse. Someone who developed symptoms didn't get tested and instead just carried on with their plans. And look, prior to this pandemic, that was what you did. I mean, I remember once working for about a week with a partially collapsed lung. Rather silly, really, but, that was behaviour that was considered acceptable, but it's not considered acceptable anymore. Anyway, luckily one of the people that they infected did get tested when they developed symptoms, but by then it was already spreading. And sadly, the effects of vaccine complacency have also been demonstrated by this outbreak. Now, a lot of people infected in this outbreak weren't eligible to be vaccinated, but some of them were and hadn't yet got vaccinated. One of these people is now in intensive care on a ventilator. So that's complacency, but some people have taken it further and are exhibiting downright selfishness. People have been filmed dancing in a packed nightclub in contravention of the restrictions, and yesterday hundreds of maskless people descended on Melbourne to protest the lockdown. I mean, how stupid can you get? If you don't want a lockdown, engaging in activities that are likely to spread the virus isn't really the smartest move. But every cloud has a silver lining, and one positive to come from this outbreak is complacency around getting vaccinated has all but disappeared. People are now queuing up to be vaccinated, and both Victoria and New South Wales have experienced their biggest days ever in terms of number of vaccinations. Now we're up to well over 4 million vaccinations. I haven't got the exact number because I haven't released the latest numbers yet for yesterday, but that is over 20% of the adult population, and I'm one of them. And actually, little Julie here also got vaccinated this week, although admittedly not for COVID. Anyway, I only had my vaccine 6 days ago, so I don't really have any protection yet, but I'm still excited because I'm that type of person. Now, I was warned by a few people before my vaccination that I could have quite bad side effects. And in fact, one of my friends at work was hassling me all day to go home because she was worried that I was going to get stuck on the bus with these bad side effects. Anyway, I left work at my normal time and managed to get home without incidents. But I did get some mild side effects later. I had a slight fever, although I probably wouldn't have known about it if I hadn't actually checked my temperature. But I also had a mild headache, and I definitely knew about that. So how does that compare with other people in Australia who have been vaccinated? We don't have an equivalent to the Zoe app, but the government is sending out a survey to a selection of people getting COVID vaccines to monitor typical side effects. So for the AstraZeneca vaccine, which is the one that I got, after the first dose, 57.2% of people reported some sort of adverse event, with fatigue being the most common at 44.5% and headache next at 37%. Also, 18.5% reported that they needed to sort of miss work or study or routine duties for a short period of time. Now, obviously, not all symptoms will be caused by the vaccine because these are the types of symptoms that people suffer from every day, but they are certainly more prevalent in people following vaccination. After the second dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine, side effects were lower, with 38.1% reporting any adverse event and only 9.7% missing work, study or routine activities. So how does Pfizer compare? Only 37.8% reported any adverse event following the first dose, which is quite a bit lower than the 57.2% following the first dose of AstraZeneca, and only 6.3% reported missing work, study or routine duties. And the most common adverse event was, in fact, just injection site pain at 30.5% and fatigue at 21.2%. Now, after the second dose, things are a bit different, with 59.7% reporting an adverse event and 23.1% missing work or study. So in a nutshell, side effects are more likely after the first dose if you get the AstraZeneca vaccine, and more likely after the second dose if you get the Pfizer vaccine. And this seems to be consistent with what is seen in other countries. So thank you for listening, and stay safe, everyone. Thank you.
Susan, thank you so much. Another excellent update as usual. I agree, I share your concern. The India variant seems to have spread in the air in quarantine hotels. So 51 local cases now. Victoria has got good experience of closing these kind of outbreaks down. So let's hope they can close this one down. But of course, we don't know till they actually hopefully succeed in doing that. But that was an excellent update. You had me going there for a minute with Julie, the dog, getting vaccinated, but it wasn't COVID. It wasn't a COVID vaccine. Imagine he was getting his kennel cough and his distemper. She was getting a kennel cough and distemper. Sorry, no offence, Julie. So good news for both of you. And thanks again for that update. Absolutely excellent. And thank you, of course, for watching.